Hi, Gus. I hope you had a good Christmas. This is your Uncle Sam again, and I'm welcoming you to part two of our special two-part presentation. Uncle Sam reads to Gus Captain Underpants and the preposterous plight of the purple potty people. Part two of our stunning two-part presentation. So let's get started. As you may recall, when we last left the boys, they were about to start reading the graphic novel about their grandparents. So let's join right there in progress. Chapter 16, The Adventures of Boxer Boy and Great Granny Girdle, an epic novella by George Beard and Harold Hutchins. The Adventures of Boxer Boy and Great Granny Girdle. Everybody knows that grandparents are kind of dorky. They tell dumb jokes. Why did the silly Willie throw his clock in the air? He wanted to see time fly. Ha ha. They call you embarrassing nicknames in public. Hello, babies. Ha ha. And they have no sense of what things cost. Here's a nickel. Why don't you go buy a video game with it? Thanks, I will. But grandparents are still cool for one reason. We're old, and we don't care what anyone thinks. Out of my way, Buster Brown, and then he shoves the cop out of the way. Step aside, you bother me. Whack. Our heroes. And so, everything was cool until one day, when a strange new store opened up downtown. Robo-Geezers Incorporated. They were selling robots. Hey kids, trade in your old, worn-out grandparents for the latest in Robo-Geezer technology. Cool. They are tons better than regular grandparents. They tell funny jokes. What's 40 feet long and smells like pee? Line dancers at the old folks' home. Ha ha. They call you cool nicknames in public. Hey, Thor. Yo, what up, dog? And best of all, they have no sense of what things cost. Here's $10,000 for a candy bar. Soon every kid in town was trading in their old grandparents. Hey, what's going on? Nothing. Where are you taking us? Nowhere. For brand new Robo-Grannies and Grandpatron 2000s. Wow. Cool. I love my new Robo-Geezers. Soon there were only 2 real grandparents left in town. You wouldn't trade us in, would you? No way. You better not, or you'll get a whooping. One day, George and Harold's grandparents went downtown. Something fishy is going on in there. So they snuck inside the building. Shh. Soon, hey, look! It says evil stuff. They opened the door and saw a tragic discovery. Hey, all the grandparents in town got totally captured. Oh my! We've got to save those old folks. But how? Beats me. Hey, look, a whole box of hard candies. Let's forget those geezers for now and just eat candy. What geezers? Munch, munch, munch on the hard candy. Meanwhile, in the next room, in a few more days, those old folks will be under our control. Cool. Then I'll give them superpowers. How will you do that? Easy. I've got a whole box of superpowered hard candies in the other room. Old people love hard candies. I know. Man, those hard candies were good. I feel so strong. Me too. I feel powerful. Oh no, those guys ate all my superpower hard candy. Uh-oh. George and Harold's grandparents joined hands. Geezer powers activate! And they spinned around and around. Soon they were transformed. I'm Boxer Boy. I'm Great Granny Girdle. I'm outta here. I'm with you. The bad guys ran upstairs. they got into a UFO on top of their building and took off. Calling all robo-geezers. Attack Boxer Boy and Great Granny Girdle. Suddenly, all the robo-geezers in town transformed. Click, click. And off they flew. The robo-geezers attacked, but Boxer Boy and Great Granny Girdle were faster than a speeding electric scooter, more powerful than adult diapers, bonk, and able to leap tall buildings without breaking a hip. Whee! But there's too many of them. I have an idea. Let's get them to chase you for a while. So all the robots all chased Great Granny Girdle, and Boxer Boy attacked the spaceship. Hey! Punch! Bam! Bang! Crash! Kicky! Then he got some paint. Hey! Shh! And he's spray painting the ship. And added the finishing touch, and he writes hard candy on the outside of the ship. Hey, robo-dorks! Look! What? Hey, yummy! The robo-geezers tried to devour the spaceship in a wild feeding frenzy. They ate and ate and ate and ate. Then one of them bit the fuel line and kaboom! And the spaceship blows up. We are free! Hooray for Boxer Boy! And 3 cheers for Great Granny Girdle! Chapter 17. Meanwhile, back at the treehouse, while George and Harold pleaded with George's dad to be excused from dinner, a pack of evil thugs was just outside their window, sneaking up into their treehouse. See, there they are sneaking up into the treehouse right there. We've got to create some kind of diversion while we unleash our sinful scheme, said Evil Harold. The villains looked around the treehouse for anything they could use. What's this little thing, said Evil George. He pressed the button on the back of the miniature Goosey Grow 4000. Suddenly, a beam of energy shot out of the tiny contraption, accidentally zapping Evil Sulu, who was tucked inside Evil Harold's shirt pocket. Immediately, Evil Sulu began to grow bigger and bigger until he leaped out of Evil Harold's pocket and fell to the floor with a giant thud. Evil Sulu was now the size of a full-grown sheepdog. The villains all smiled at one another as they watched Evil Sulu growl and snarl ferociously. Yeah, he does look pretty ferocious. Look at that. Everyone jumped up and dashed outside to get a better look at the horrible creature that towered over the house, snarling and roaring hideously. For some strange reason, George and Harold's grandparents jumped up and dashed the fastest, faster than they had moved in years. But nobody really noticed because of the giant hamster thing. What's going on? Cried Harold. Those evil guys must have followed us back to our own reality somehow, whispered George. We've got to stop them before they take over our world. Sulu crashed and smashed his way through the neighborhood, heading toward the big city, because, well, that's where giant monsters usually head. George ran inside and grabbed the 3D Hitmo ring and the superpower juice, which felt surprisingly empty, and whistled for crackers. And while the grown-ups were fussing and fretting over trivial things like broken fences, insurance policies, and property damage reports, George, Harold, and Crackers flew off to save the world. Chapter 19. WhenHamstersAttack.com. Soon the 3 friends soared over the center of the city. There they made up with their beloved pet, Sulu, who was now a giant evil monster destroying everything in his path. Well, said Harold, it looks like you and I are going to have to drink that superpower juice so we can stop giant evil Sulu from wrecking the city. Harold, said George as he eyed the carton of superpower juice suspiciously. I'm so psyched, said Harold. I've always wanted to have superpowers. Harold, said George again as he held the carton to his ear and shook it back and forth. I hope I get Kung Fu grip and X-ray vision, said Harold. That would be awesome. Harold, shouted George as he turned the superpower juice carton upside down. There's nothing left. What do you mean? Cried Harold. There was like a third of a carton in there 20 minutes ago. Well, it's gone now, said George. It must have evaporated or something. The boys watched helplessly as giant evil Sulu continued trashing the city. Well, said George, I guess there's just one thing left to do. Hurriedly, the three friends flew to the home of their principal, Mr. Krupp. It was easy to find, since it was the only house on Curmudgeon Boulevard that was covered in toilet paper. Next time we've got to use single-ply toilet paper, said George. We'll get better coverage. After a quick knock on the door and an even quicker snap of the fingers, Mr. Krupp transformed into the amazing Captain Underpants. And in no time at all, the world's greatest, baldest superhero was face to face with the world's biggest, baddest bionic hamster. Chapter 20, the incredibly graphic violence chapter, part 1, in Fliporama. Okay, I got the hang of the Fliporama. Hamster Havoc. See, now there's Sulu, and he's holding Captain Underpants in his hand. He's about to bash him with his fist. Watch this. Ow! 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 Boy, that's gotta hurt Captain Underpants. And now, put your head on my boulder. See, now there's Captain Underpants, and he's got a boulder, and he's going to bonk evil Sulu on the head with it. Watch this. Ow! 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 Chapter 21, the anticlimactic chapter. The battle between man and beast was over. George and Harold petted Sulu's giant face and breathed a sigh of relief. He'll be okay, said George. He's just got knocked out. Great, said Harold. It looks like all of our problems are over. Not so fast, said a voice that came from somewhere on the lower right-hand corner of the page. Right there. It was Evil George, along with Evil Harold and the ultra-evil Captain Blunderpants. The terrible trio had been busy working on their preposterous plight, which is just a fancy way of saying that they were busy robbing a bank. Somebody's been messing with our giant attack hamster, said Evil Harold. I think we need to teach those goody-goodies a lesson. And I'm just the guy to do it, said Captain Blunderpants proudly. Instantly, the mood shifted. Everyone stood back. The air crackled with tension. The showdown of the century was about to begin. Captain Underpants would soon engage in a historic battle with his evil twin. Never before had our brave hero encountered an enemy who was so powerful. Pound for pound, superpower for superpower, Captain Underpants was pitted against his equal. He had met his match. It was to be the ultimate smackdown. An all-out war. The brawl to end all brawls. The definitive clash between good and evil. A momentous confrontation of the most critical snap. George snapped his fingers, and suddenly the horrifyingly evil Captain Blunderpants transformed into a friendly elementary school principal. Aw, man, cried Evil George and Evil Harold. We read your comic book back in Chapter 8, said Harold. Did you think we wouldn't remember how to turn your evil supervillain back into a harmless principal? George and Harold quickly found some rope and tied up Evil George, Evil Harold, and nice Mr. Krupp. We're taking you losers back to your own reality, where you won't bother us ever again. All we have to do is dehypnotize and shrink Sulu, and our job will be done, said Harold. Nothing can possibly go wrong now. You know, you really shouldn't say things like that, said George. Why, said Harold. Chapter 22, kaboom! Suddenly, lightning flashed, thunder crashed, and the rain came a-tumbling down. That's why, said George. As the first few drops of rain hit Captain Underpants' pudgy face, he began to transform. In a matter of seconds, he changed from a confident, powerful superhero into an angry, annoyed elementary school principal. Unlike Wisely, the rain on the face thing was having the opposite effect on nice Mr. Krupp, transforming him once again into an arrogant, foul-tempered supervillain named Captain Blunderpants. Evil George and Evil Harold smiled their evilest smiles as Captain Blunderpants snapped their ropes and yelled out a triumphant, "La la tra!" George and Harold quickly snapped their fingers again and again, snap, 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 snap. But it was having no effect. It was raining too hard, and Mr. Krupp was getting annoyed. "This is the dumbest dream I've ever had," he shouted. "I'm going to go home and get back into bed." And with that, he turned and stormed off toward his soggy toilet paper-covered house. "Looks like the tables have turned," Evil Harold snickered. "You guys haven't won yet," said George. Quickly, George and Harold leaped onto Crackers' back, and the three forlorn friends flew off to their tree house. "Don't just stand there," cried Evil Harold to his creepy cohorts. "Let's get 'em!" Chapter 23, 2 minutes later. Back in George's yard, our heroes searched furiously through their treehouse. "I found it!" cried George. "The Shrinky Pig 2000. All we have to do is shrink those evil losers and we'll save the world." "Too late!" shouted Captain Blunderpants as he grabbed George and Harold by their shirt collars. "We'll take that shrinky thing," said Evil Harold as the contraption slipped out of George's arms. "I'm not sure how it works, but once I figure it out, I can think of about 1,000,009 evil things to do with it." Captain Blunderpants held George and Harold high in the air and snarled viciously. "Prepare to be pulverized," he shouted. "We're doomed," screamed Harold. "Now wait just a pickle-pinning minute, young fella," shouted a familiar-sounding voice from inside George's house. Chapter 24. Nobody messes with our grandbabies. Harold's grandpa and George's great-grandma stepped out onto the back patio and confronted the big bully, Captain Blunderpants. "You put those babies down or you'll get the whooping of your lifetime," said George's great-grandma. Captain Blunderpants laughed haughtily. "We're not going to warn you again, Skippy," said Harold's grandpa. Captain Blunderpants continued to tighten his grip on George and Harold. So the two octogenarians joined hands, gazed fiercely into each other's eyes, and shouted, "Geyser powers, activate!" Quickly they began spinning around and around. Faster and faster the old folks twirled until a tornado formed around them, tearing away their clothes and jewelry and sending patio furniture flying violently. Suddenly the twirling stopped. The tornado subsided, and the elderly twosome stood proudly in their underwear, huffing, puffing, and fearlessly facing their foe. "Ooh, that was fun! Let's do it again, Henry," said George's great-grandma. "Ha ha," laughed Harold's grandpa. "All right, my dear, but we've got to teach that silly Willie a lesson first." "Oh, yeah," said George's great-grandma. "That young fella's got a hankerin' for a spankerin'." Harold's grandpa grabbed a couple of curtains from the kitchen window and tied them around their necks. "Not too tight, Henry," said George's great-grandma. With their capes in place, George and Harold's super-grandparents approached Captain Blunderpants triumphantly. "All right, sonny," said Harold's grandpa, "prepare to get your bucket whooped by Boxer Boy and Great Granny Girdle." Okay, here's another chapter 25, the incredibly graphic violence chapter, part 2, also in Flipperama. First, we start with the geriatric jawbreaker, where Boxer Boy is going to pop Captain Blunderpants right in the mouth. Ow! 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 Next comes the cane in the brain. Ow! 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 And finally, take a walker on the wild side. Bang! 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 Chapter 26, Shrinky Dorks. "You know," said George, "I think I just figured out what happened to the superpower juice that disappeared earlier." "Oh yeah," said Evil George, "but you didn't figure this out. All we have to do is press one button on the shrinking machine and you'll all be transformed into tiny little shrimps." "Go ahead and press the button," laughed Harold. "You're holding it backwards anyway. You'll just shrink yourselves." "Really?" said Evil Harold. "Gee, thanks." He turned the Shrinky Pig 2000 around and pressed the button. Zap! And they were shrunk to the size of potato chips. "Hey," shouted Mini Evil George. "What happened?" "Oops," said Harold. "I guess I made a mistake. You actually were holding it right the first time. My bad." "You know," said George, "I think I know two little boys who could really use a good spanking." Here's chapter 27, the incredibly graphic violence chapter, part 3. Again in Flipporama. And they're going to spank the shrunken Evil George and Harold with their little finger. Watch this. Bang, 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 bang. "Well, it looks like our job here is done," said Boxer Boy. "Yes, it is, my big strong man," said Great Granny Girdle, giggling gleefully. George and Harold looked at each other in horror. You know, little lady, somewhere out there is an all-you-can-eat buffet with a senior citizen's early bird special just going to waste. Well, let's go and find it, you big hunk of love, said Great Granny Girdle as she kissed him passionately on his wobbly neck fat. The scene that followed could best be described as the drooliest 5-minute kiss in the history of children's books. Dentures were sloshed, wrinkles flapped, and rubbery jowls squished, smushed, and quivered gelatinously. Said Harold, I think I need to go wash my eyeballs. Me too, said George. And as the arthritic adventurers flew off into the sunset, George and Harold decided to try very, very hard not to think about the disgusting event they had just witnessed. Come on, we've got to wrap this story up, said George. First, we need to dehypnotize and shrink Sulu. Then we've got to go back into that crazy purple potty and return those bozos to their alternate universe, said Harold. Chapter 29, to make a long story short, zap. And they bring Sulu back to his regular size. Chapter 30, to make a longer story even shorter, kick. And then they kick the 3 evil ones out of the purple potty back into their own alternate universe. Chapter 31, the chapter where nothing bad happens. Gee, that worked out pretty good, said Harold. Sulu is now back to his normal size and personality, and the purple potty people are back in their own reality where they won't be able to bother us ever again. I guess everything worked out perfectly. Yeah, nice going, said George, looking a bit annoyed. Why do you have to say things like that? Things like what? Said Harold. Haven't you been paying attention in these stories? Asked George. Every time somebody says something like that, it always means that a bunch of bad stuff is just about to happen. But what could possibly go wrong now? Asked Harold. Freeze, shouted the chief of police. You guys are under arrest for robbing Frank's bank. Looks like you're going to jail for the rest of your lives. See what I mean? Said George. You've got to stop saying stuff like that. I guess you're right, said Harold, but at least things can't get any worse. Ah! Shouted George. You just did it again. Now I bet when you turn the page, something even worse is going to happen. You've got to learn to keep your mouth shut at the end of these books. Yeah, but what could be worse than going to jail for the rest of our lives? Chapter 32, the thing that could be worse than going to jail for the rest of their lives. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a ball of blue lightning appeared, growing bigger and bigger until it exploded in a blinding flash. And there, standing where the ball of lightning had been, was a smoking pair of giant robotic pants. This can't be good, said George. A small opening at the front of the robopants began to unzip, and out of that opening peeked a fearsomely familiar face. Hey, it's Professor Poopy Pants, shouted Harold. The cop started to laugh. Stop laughing, shouted the little man, peeking out of the giant zipper. My name is no longer Professor Poopy Pants. I changed it to Tippy Tinkle Trousers. The cops laughed even harder. And I've got a special surprise for anybody who thinks my new name is funny, said the furious professor. Immediately, the giant metallic pants opened up at the top, and a giant laser shooter rose from its robotic depths. A brilliant burst of energy zapped the laughing cops, and suddenly they were both transformed into frozen statues. My Freezy Beam 4000 will take care of anybody who stands in my way, said Tippy. And now, he said with a wicked smile, it's time for my revenge. Oh no, screamed Harold. Here we go again, screamed George. And that is the end of Captain Underpants and the preposterous plight of the purple potty people. So, Gus, I hope you've really enjoyed this story as much as I've enjoyed reading it to you. And I hope I'll see you very, very soon. And I love you very, very much. Bye.